So it is 7:32 p.m. on Tuesday, January 14th, 2025. Good evening and Happy New Year. My name is Christian Klein. I'm the chair of the Arlington Zoning Board of Appeals, and I'm calling this meeting of the board to order. I'd first like to confirm that all members and anticipated officials are present. Members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, Patrick Hanlon,
Here.
Venkat Hully,
Here.
Adam LeBlanc,
Here.
and Elaine Hoffman.
Here.
Good to have you all with us. Roger DuPont is unavailable this evening, and Ms. Hoffman will be taking his place at the table. On behalf of the town, we have Colleen Ralston, our zoning assistant.
Here.
Good to have you with us. And I don't believe there's anyone else representing the town on this evening. We have 4 items on our agenda. The first item, the 3, I'm just going to be confirming that people are available. So docket 3822 20 Pond Lane, Doug Troyer is the attorney for the applicant. He has filed a request for a continuance on that. And they're asking for that to be continued to a date in February, but we'll vote on that after we finish the opening. Appearing for docket 3828, 190 Waverly Street, Brandon and Catherine Maloney, are you here?
We are.
Perfect, thank you. For docket 3829, 86 Rawson Road, we have Bhavadish and Barosh Shrista.
Right here.
Great, good to have you with us. And for docket 3830, 39 Woodside Lane, is Better Homes Realty.
We're here. Mary Winstanley O'Connor for the applicant, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good to have you with us. Okay, so tonight's meeting of the Arlington Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted remotely, consistent with the supplemental budget bill signed by Governor Heatley on March 29th, 2023, which extended temporary provisions pertaining to the open meeting law until March 31st, 2025. The extension of these provisions allows public bodies to hold its meetings remotely by providing live, adequate alternative means of public access to the deliberations. This meeting is being recorded and will be broadcast by ACMi. Members of the public who are participating by Zoom and who wish to offer public comment should be aware that they will be asked to provide their full name and address so that a complete public record of the meeting can be taken in accordance with state law. All participants of this meeting are advised that people may be listening to the meeting without offering public comment, and those people are not required to identify themselves. Any votes that are taken this evening will be conducted by roll call. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. As chair, I reserve the right to take items out of order in the interest of promoting an orderly meeting. And as the board will be taking up new business at this meeting, as chair, I'll make the following land acknowledgement. Whereas the Zoning Board of Appeals for the town of Arlington, Massachusetts, discusses and arbitrates the use of land in Arlington, formerly known as Menotomy, an Algonquin word meaning swift waters, the board hereby acknowledges that the town of Arlington is located on the ancestral lands of the Massachusetts tribe, the tribe of indigenous peoples from whom the colony, province, and commonwealth have taken their name. We pay our respects to the ancestral bloodline of the Massachusetts tribe and their descendants who still inhabit historic Massachusetts territories today. Just a brief note on procedures. At the end of the discussion of each individual hearing, the board will vote to either continue the public hearing to a specific date to continue receiving testimony on the matter, or the board will vote to close the public hearing, ending the receipt of new testimony. The board will then proceed to the next item on the agenda. Over the coming days, the board will prepare a draft decision based on the testimony received and the discussions that took place during the public hearing, and that decision will be voted on at the next available meeting of the board. They're going to our agenda this evening. There are no administrative items on our agenda, so we'll move straight on to hearings. Before opening tonight's meeting for public hearings, here's some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of tonight's business. After I announce each agenda item, I will ask the participant to introduce himself or themselves and make their presentation to the board. I will then request that members of the board ask what questions they have on the proposal. After the board's questions have been answered, I will open the meeting for public comment. At the conclusion of public comment, the board will deliberate and vote to either continue or close the public hearing. All votes will be conducted by roll call vote. The final vote on any matter before the board will be taken at a subsequent meeting once the written decision has been drafted and provided to the board. The decision will then be filed with the town clerk, starting the 20-day appeal period under state law. After that time, the applicant may proceed with their building permit. However, under state law, no decision granted by this board shall take effect until a certified copy of the final decision has been filed with and recorded at the Middlesex South Registry of Deeds in Cambridge by the applicant. So with that, the first of the hearings is item 2 on our agenda, docket 3822, 20 Pond Lane. As I mentioned previously, the applicants have requested a continuance of this hearing until February. I did want to ask Ms. Ralston if there was either the 11th or the 25th was a better evening to hear them.
Currently for the 11th, I believe we have 2.
Okay.
And the 25th, we have none.
Well, at this point, why don't we put them on? We'll move them to the 11th. We'll see if the 20th, leave the 25th open. So with that, the chair moves to continue the public hearing for docket 3822, 20 Pond Lane to Tuesday, February 11th, 2025 at 7:30 p.m.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hanlon. So with that, a roll call vote of the board in favor of continuing the public hearing for 20 Pond Lane, voting yes or no. Mr. Hanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Holly,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc,
Yes.
Ms. Hoffman,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes, that is continued. That brings us to item 3 on our agenda, docket number 3828, 190 Waverly Street. If I could ask the applicants to please introduce themselves and tell us what they're proposing to do.
Sure. So first, thank you all, Town of Arlington, for hearing us here tonight. We certainly appreciate your time and your consideration. My name is Brandon Malone,
Catherine Malone.
and we're here as Arlington residents since 2013. So actually just had our 11-year anniversary. The day after Christmas is when we moved into this home. And the reason we're requesting your time, your consideration here tonight is we'd like to go ahead and extend our home. We bought this home 11 years ago. It was just Catherine and I. Life changed. We now have 2 children here, ages 8 and 4. And the reality for us was we always knew this home was, although on the small side, would be okay for the 2 of us. But we really didn't expect, once the family expanded, that we're going to need to make some changes. And so the home, when we bought it, was 1,096 square feet. It's now 1,128 square feet. We added a bathroom and deck years ago. And really, that was the end of our plan. We didn't expect to make any changes. We had our children, and our thoughts were that, we're going to have to move. We need to find more space. And to be quite candid, the housing market, with what happened after COVID and skyrocketing prices, really took us by surprise and changed the cost dynamic dramatically. And what's also happened is, as we've been here longer and longer, we've really settled some nice roots in the community. Our son goes to the Dallin School. He loves that school, so much so that he even offered to help with his own money to help make sure that we could stay and he could continue to go to the Dallin and spend time with his friends. So with that, our plans have pivoted once again, and we thought, is there a way for us to expand what we have while also being respectful to the rest of the neighborhood? And it's something I don't think we would have considered previously, but when we went down the street, we saw a blueprint of probably about 9 or 10 houses on Waverly Street specifically that have done the exact same thing that we're trying to do, which is just to bump off the back of the house, make sure we're respectful of setbacks, and allow us to have what would still be a modest home, but enough space to stay and raise our family and be here for a long time to come, which is certainly our hope and desire.
Thank you. Um, would you like me to display the plans, or do you have? has someone who wants
Mr. Chair, you're
this?
breaking up a little bit. We can't really hear you.
I can go ahead and share the plans if it will be helpful to folks here.
No.
Everyone see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So I'm thinking probably the best way to start this would be,
Okay. So hopefully you can see the feet of it.
Yep, so to give you some background on what you're looking at here, maybe it's best if I start from the outside. So here is kind of the layout, the existing
So it's
house.
actually my screen that's being shared, but
I'm sorry, can you see the plans I'm showcasing now? Can you see the side view of the house, if you will?
Yes, we can see it.
You-
I think the chair may have dropped out for a moment, but hopefully he'll be rejoining momentarily.
Okay, would you like me to hold off and give him a moment to rejoin?
Yeah, it looks like you just hopped back in.
please continue. I apologize for interruption.
No worries. So what you're looking at is a side view of the house as it is today. Basically, if I drew a straight line right up and to the right, that's the existing house today. It's 1,128 square feet, 3 beds, 2 baths on the upper floor. And our hope is to just simply go off the back of the house and add some additional space for the family. So what that would be in the form of this basement room you see here, a living room, and then it would be a bedroom and bathroom for my wife and I. And so, just trying to give you this another view here. Here's the other side of the house. So same view really. Probably better for me to give you some of the internal shots. So that's the electrical. Here will be the basement room here. So today, as it stands, you come down the stairs. This is the end of the house right here. What we want to do is build out, this will be the foundation right here. We currently do have a deck. We would remove that deck and add a smaller deck to make sure we stay within the setback off the back of the house. Here would be let me show you the downstairs first. So this is the first floor. And again, the house ends right here today. This is the bathroom. But what our plan would be is to go off the back of the house, lead open to a family room here, and then this becomes the new deck. This would be the second floor above, which would be a smaller space. It would be 24 by 16 as opposed to the 24 by 20 on the foundation of the first floor. So this is really a nursery bedroom here, which our daughter is certainly outgrown. And the plan would be is she would take what our bedroom is today, our son stays here. This would become a pass through off to the bedroom and bathroom for my wife and I. And it would, give us again enough space to make it work here in the home. I know I threw a lot at you at a high level, and I've been the one jabbering away, which I tend to ramble. So please, I'll pause here and address any questions that the town may have.
Could you display the site plan?
The site plan, in terms of the plot plan, or
Yeah, that plot plan.
sure thing, you got it. Yeah. Please let me know if you can see that screen. I think I shared my entire computer, but can you see the plot plan?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. Let me make it bigger for you too. So here's the existing dwelling, and here would be the addition and deck here. So we have about a 20 and a half foot setback with this plan in place. No changes to the sides at all. Everything's just basically right off the back of the house. Trying to work within the limitations we have within the lot and still make sure we're honoring setbacks as well. It's actually not even a 5,000 square foot lot. I believe Public Records has it at 4,792. But yeah.
Right. All right, well, thank you for that. So the addition will come straight off the sides of the house. It's not stepping out, it's not stepping in, it's just continuing that existing setback.
Correct, right off the back of those, so no changes to the sides whatsoever.
Okay. And it's 20.5 feet to the deck, and I believe it's an additional 9 feet to the building, to the house itself.
Correct, yeah, the deck will be 9 feet off the back of the house, and then there'll be 20.5 feet of yard after the deck is the plan.
All right. So one of the things we have to check is the usable open space. And so the usable open space has a minimum dimension of 25, but it can go over a deck. So there's 29.5 by effectively 50 feet, it looks like, the way that this is drawn.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And I know that the site is sloping downwards from the street. It looks like it levels out sort of almost where the house ends now. Do you know how far down it goes? What the change in elevation is?
I'm not sure exactly. I'd have to report back to you on that. It does slope some. It continues a little bit, but it's pretty mild, I would say. I can't imagine it being more than 10 degree, if even that. It's pretty slight.
Okay. Great. So the application it is for a large addition, which under the bylaw requires us to make a series of findings, including some specific findings for a large addition that deal with harmony with structures and uses in the vicinity, dimensions and setbacks relating to abutting structures, and conformity with the bylaws. So I just want to sort of put that out there as a sort of a feeder for discussion with the board. Are there members of the board who have questions at this time? Looking at everyone's little picture, I don't see any. Then with that, I would ask if you could go ahead and stop the share. So unless there's specific questions from the board at this time, I'm going to go ahead and open the meeting for public comment. So public questions and comments are taken as they relate to the matter at hand and should be directed to the board for the purpose of informing its decision. Members of the public will be granted time to ask questions and make comments. Members of the public who wish to speak can digitally raise their hand using the button on the React tab at the bottom of the screen. If they're calling in by phone, they can dial *9 to indicate you'd like to speak. You'll be called upon by the chair, asked to give your name and address for the record, and given time for your questions and comments. All questions are to be addressed through the chair. Please remember to speak clearly. For anyone wishing to address the board a second time during any particular hearing, the chair will allow those wishing to speak for the first time to be called upon first. And once all public questions and comments have been addressed, the public comment period will be closed. So with that, are there any members of the public who wish to address this application, which is 190 Waverly Street? Mr. Moore.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve Moore, Piedmont Street. I was trying to look at Google Maps to see if there are any significant trees or any trees in the setbacks around where the construction is going to happen. So I'd like to pose that question through you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So go ahead, Mr. Maloney, are there any large trees that are within the setbacks that would be impacted by this construction?
When you say the setback, you're referencing the 20 feet from the.
So within the 10 feet of the side, mostly it's within the 10 feet on the left side of the house.
No, there are not. The only tree we have is in the very back corner which is, will not be next to the sides of the house and are not today either. They're literally in the back corner of the yard. They're within that 20-foot setback of the actual yard, probably within 5 feet of it, frankly.
Okay. And are there any trees that would obstruct construction vehicles from getting from the street to the area of the construction?
No, there are not.
Great, thank
The
you.
only tree we have in the lot.
Okay. Mr. Moore?
Okay, that's good news, Mr. Chair. I just would remind the applicant they need to adequately protect the critical zone of that tree and develop a tree plan for their project. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Are there any other members of the public who wish to address this application? Seeing none, I will go ahead and close the public comment period for this hearing. So what the board has in front of it, this is a request for a special permit under section 542B6, which is the large addition, which allows that the special permit is required if more than 750 square feet of area is added to a structure that falls outside of the existing foundation. And in order for that to be approved, apart from the standard findings that are required for a special permit, the board is also required to make findings that the alteration or addition is in harmony with other structures and uses in the vicinity. And in making that finding, the board is to consider dimensions and setbacks in relation to abutting structures and uses, and to consider conformity with the purposes of the bylaw. So I had, where did I put that? Okay. So this is map of the area around the house. 190 is the one that has the box around it. As the applicant noted, 194 and 198 both also appear to have rear yard additions, as does at least one house or two houses on Wachusett Avenue. Where the board is to consider the relationship of this addition in relation to other properties. It does appear there is a lot of open space currently between the houses that are back to back on Waverly and Wachusett. And even though it's nearby to Hillside Avenue, because those two houses on Hillside face Hillside, their backyard is currently facing their house as opposed to being a closely adjacent side yard. So I think the board can look at that, and it does not appear that the proposed addition in this area creates an undue concentration of structures in this particular area in relation to those properties around it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. LeBlanc.
I apologize. I just had a clarifying question for something that I just came across in the drawings when I was just looking at them again.
Yes, please.
Question for the applicants: is the porch proposed to be covered? That rear porch?
You're referencing?
Yeah, the proposed deck in the back, is that going to be covered?
Sir.
No? Okay. It just looked like it in one of the elevations that was in the document, so I just wanted to clarify that, because otherwise it wouldn't meet the usable open space definition.
Nope, that is an open space. It is going to be a deck. Yeah, sorry if the drawing didn't clearly convey that, but yes, that is a deck.
Okay, so it won't have a roof on it.
No. No, yeah, probably. I see maybe like page 7. Is that on the pricing set? Is that?
Correct.
I know
Yeah.
I was confused by that myself, but yeah, it's not to scale. The better version is that side view on page, if you're looking at that pricing set of the plans.
I see. That's the sloped roof
Yeah,
of
the sloped
of the
roof,
family home.
exactly, correct, yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, the way that it's drawn, it does look like it potentially is a roof, but
Yeah.
thank you.
No problem.
The thing I had wanted to check, and I need to find the right plan set again. Initially there was a question about the elevation at the basement level and whether enough of the basement was exposed that it was going to become a floor. I apologize, I can't put my finger on the right drawings at the moment. But it does not appear that that's actually the case. This is I'm not finding it right now. Yeah, the lower level, I don't believe it has enough headspace to qualify as a story. That's certainly something that the building inspector can confirm. But with that, as there isn't a full attic build out, it's just a 2-story with an attic. I don't know that that would necessarily enter into the conversation anyways. Right. So are there any other questions or comments from the board before I sort of move into the findings? Seeing none. So in order to approve the large addition, we need to make a finding that the alteration or addition is in harmony with other structures and uses in the vicinity. And to do that, we're to consider the dimensions and setbacks in relation to abutting structures and uses. We had taken a look at the plan of the neighborhood and looked at the spacing of the houses and the openness of the back or the rear yards, and noted how there does appear to be adequate space for this addition, and it would be similar to other additions that have been approved previously. And we also need to consider whether this conforms with the purposes of the bylaw. The purposes of the bylaw is to allow for adequate open space and fresh air, which this does, to allow for an orderly expansion of the town, an orderly increase of the tax base, and to make the town more convenient for its residents. And I think the board can find that both of those are met, and that for those reasons, we could find that the the addition is in harmony with other structures and uses in its vicinity. So that would satisfy the finding for the large addition. Then for the required findings for special permit in general, the board needs to be able to find that the adverse effect of the proposed use will not outweigh its beneficial impacts. First, the requested use is allowed by special permit. This is a single-family house. It will remain a single-family house, which is allowed. The only reason it's here is for a special permit because of the size of the addition, and that can be approved by special permit. The requested use is essential or desirable to the public convenience or welfare. The orderly expansion of houses to meet the growing needs of families and to meet the changing requirements of the residents of Arlington is something that is good for the town. It maintains the value of properties and the desirability of the town. The requested use will not create undue traffic congestion or impair pedestrian safety. It will not change the traffic that will be generated by the site, nor will there be any additions to the front of the house that could possibly impact the ability to view pedestrians or cyclists or any other users of the public ways. The requested use will not overload any public system. There will be a minimal possible increase in utility use just due to the greater size of the structure, but otherwise there will be no impacts to any public systems. Special regulations for the requested use are fulfilled. Those the specific findings for large addition, which we covered earlier. The requested use will not impair the character or integrity of the district. So this is The addition that is being proposed is very much in keeping with the style of the house as it is today, and is in keeping with the overall the sort of the growing scale of the neighborhood. There are some houses that are larger. There are some houses that are smaller. Sort of keeps the sort of scale of that. And the addition is being done to the rear of the home, which minimizes the visual impacts from the street. And then the requested use will not be detrimental to the public health or welfare. There's really nothing about a single-family home that would be detrimental to the public health or welfare. And the requested use will not cause an excess of use detrimental to the neighborhood. It is a single-family house in a single-family district. There will be no excess of any of use to the neighborhood. So those are the findings that the board would be required to make. Are there any questions or comments from the board in regards to those findings? Seeing none, I believe the board has the information it needs in order to draft a decision. I would ask Mr. Hanlon if he or his designee would be willing to draft a decision in the affirmative for this case for presentation at the next hearing.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would.
Thank you, Mr. Hanlon. And with that, I move to close the public hearing for docket 3828 190 Waverly Street. And we will be voting on a draft decision at the following hearing. So with that, the chair has moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Hanlon. So roll call vote of the board to close the public hearing for docket 3828 190 Waverly Street. Voting yes or no, Mr. Hanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Hawley,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc,
Yes.
Ms. Hoffman,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. This hearing is closed. Thank you very much for coming before us this evening.
So I understand we should report back in 2 weeks, correct?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, excellent. We will see you then. And,
Absolutely. The final vote will be right at the start, so it'll be nice and quick for you.
great. Thank you all for your time and consideration. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, returning to our agenda, that brings us to item 4 on our agenda this evening, which is docket 3829 86 Rawson Road. If I could ask the applicants to please introduce themselves and tell us what they are proposing to do.
Good evening and happy new year, everyone. Thank you
Good
so
evening.
very much for your time. I am Barosh Resta, and here's my brother.
I'm Bhavish Rasta.
So I've been living in Arlington since 2014, of course, renting. And we moved to Rawson Road recently. It's been about 4.5 months. And there were a bit of some constructions going on while we were planning to settle in. And we had to add in a new support to the existing porch, for which we were granted a permit, and that work has been completed. With that, we're planning on having our existing open porch enclosed, as there's an existing porch already on the second floor. That was all we had planned for.
Okay, thank you. I'm just opening a couple of files here in the background, which we'll switch to here in a second. All right. Okay, so here's believe a photograph of your house. This is while the beam is being replaced.
Yes, that's correct.
That's the work that's done. And the intention, as you had said, is to now enclose this porch similar to how the porch up above was enclosed.
Yes, that's correct.
Great, thank you. I believe. Um, to open one other set of photos. So I believe these are photos of properties nearby that you had also submitted as well.
Mhm.
So I believe so. This one, I believe what you're showing here is sort of houses where the entire front porch has been enclosed. So this on Rawson Road, this on Exeter Street, Dartmouth Street, Amherst. And here, Cornell. And then here's the site plan. So what we're looking at here, so the existing is open, it would be enclosed. So it would not come out any farther than the
Existing platform.
existing platform. Okay.
Right.
And that aligns with what's above as well. So that won't change. And the steps are not moving at all. The steps are the same steps.
Mhm.
Okay. So the existing structure is 14.3 to the main building, and then 7 feet to the porch. So at the second floor level, the setback is 7 feet presently. The plan is to, so I believe from the existing, there's a window that currently falls sort of where the edge of the porch is. Is that correct?
Yes,
And so that's being taken out?
that is the plan. Yeah.
Okay. And then this is the plan that was submitted. So there would be windows on both ends of the porch, with 3 windows facing the street. And then this was a triple before, so the middle, it looks like the middle is infilled,
Right.
and then the window to both sides remains. So the one thing I noted before, we don't specifically on the construction plans have dimensions to the outside of the, we have dimensions to the inside, but we do have on the site plan is dimensioned, so those would be the final dimensions for the porch, even though they're not specifically here on this plan.
Mhm.
And then just going back, so is the intent that the windows would be similar to what is going on the second floor? Would they
Near windows,
be
those
more?
windows are on the second floor are pretty old. So similar, I think
Okay.
it's not that big if you see the size, but the newer windows, the windows on the second floor are pretty old. So yeah.
Okay. But are they to the upper floor? It looks like these are sliding side by side. So I'm curious if the new windows would be that same type, or would they be sort of
Sliding
double
up
hung
and
like
down.
the other?
Yeah, the one on the
sorry,
yeah, the where the mouse click is, yeah, up and down.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Are there questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure that I understand the dimensions. The floor plan has the length of the porch at 16 feet 7 inches. And the site plan has it, I believe it's 17.8 inches. No, yes. And I just want to make sure, it seems like a fairly large difference for just the inside versus the outside. And I just want to make sure that we understand, that I understand which are the correct figures, or how they're, or if they're both correct, how they relate to each other.
Is that the question to us?
Yes, I mean, there
Oh.
appears to be a discrepancy in the length of the porch from one drawing that says that they're 17.8 feet, and the other says it's 16 feet and 7 inches. And I'm just trying to figure
Yeah.
out
So
what the explanation is for that.
I mean, the size of the
my,
porch, we haven't actually changed it.
Yeah,
I'm not.
yeah, we do not know how that works, but like the whatever platform was there. So you are breaking.
We lost him again. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I keep on going in and out of his chair, but can't really very well answer my own question. We'll wait for Christian to get back.
So a site plan lists the length as being 17, and the plan that the quote magic plan where it dimensions it at 16'7", that's an inside to inside dimension, and it doesn't include an outside to outside dimension.
Okay, so they're reconcilable in that way, that the difference can be basically a foot.
Yeah, so if the outside wall is, depending on how it's framed, it could be, 6-inch walls on both sides.
Okay, well, as long as Mr. Champa doesn't have any problem with it, I don't either. I just want to make sure that that there's no ambiguity as to what the plans are that we may eventually approve.
Okay. Right. All right. Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I will go ahead and move on to public comment. Again, public comment is taken as it relates to the matter at hand. It should be directed to the board for the purpose of informing its decision. Those who wish to speak can digitally raise their hand using the React tab at the bottom of the screen. And if you're on phone, you can dial *9. You'll be called upon by the chair, asked for name and address for the record, and given time for questions and comments. With that, are there any members of the public who wish to address this application, which is docket 3829, 86 Rawson Road? Seeing none, any last chance? Go ahead and close public comment for this hearing. So what the board has before it, this is an application filed under section 539D to enclose an open porch, which requires a special permit. There are no specific findings in relation to the enclosure, so it is just the standard findings that the board is required to make. And to go through those now. So the board needs primarily to make a finding that the adverse effects of the proposed use will not outweigh its beneficial impacts. So the first requested use is allowed by special permit in the district. So this is allowed under 539D to enclose a porch. Why is the requested use essential or desirable to public convenience or welfare? As we noted before, it's in the benefits of the town to allow for the expansion and redevelopment of its existing properties in order to meet the needs of the public, especially the residents who are living here and are trying to make their space more usable for them. It also allows for an orderly expansion of the base of the town while preserving open space and access to air and light. The requested use will not create undue traffic congestion or impair pedestrian safety. While this porch is being enclosed, it is still 9 feet back from the street, the edge of the property. So while it does slightly impact the length of the sight lines along the sidewalk, it does still allow adequate provision to view up and down the sidewalk and to view any pedestrian or bicycle traffic, and certainly plenty of time to address any vehicular traffic in the street. Requested use will not overload any public system. this will not greatly impact any particular system or utility that the property currently is connected to. There are no special regulations that need to be fulfilled for this requested use. The requested use will not impair the character or integrity of the district. This is a small enclosure. This is a typical enclosure, especially in East Arlington, with the two-family porches, where two families with the two-story porches, where the porches become enclosed over time. And this porch is being enclosed with windows, so it does maintain sort of the lighter character that a porch inherently has, which is very good to see. The requested use will not be detrimental to public health or welfare. It will not impact anything in regards to the health or welfare, and will not cause an excess use detrimental to the neighborhood. This is an existing two-family property in a two-family district in East Arlington. This is very typical, and there is no excess use raised by that. Are there any questions or comments from the board in regards to those findings?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hanlon?
as members of the board will remember that I've on occasion been concerned about the enclosure of porches because of the potential that that can become a backdoor way of essentially extending the house into the setback rather than just dealing with the projection. And here I'm particularly happy with the way in which the applicant has proposed this. The porch does not extend any further than it does now. It doesn't extend even to increase the extent of the encroachment on the side yard. So it definitely is preserving its character as a projection rather than an extension of the house. It's also doing that functionally. The applicant drawings make clear that it will be a play area basically for that is not being incorporated and becoming part of their dining room or anything of that sort. And in fact, they've stated in their application that it's meant to entertain the growing family as an activity area and protect them from the elements. So this is exactly what the bylaw is intended to allow and to encourage. And I'm particularly happy to support this application and to add that into the findings, because at least for me, the potential of subverting the intent of the bylaw is one of the potential adverse impacts, which is not found here.
Thank you, Mr. Hanlon. Are there any other comments from the board? Seeing none. I realize now I was in error on the prior hearing, and I'm hoping that this won't become an issue, but I will cover it now for this one. Should the board want to vote in favor of this application, the board typically includes 3 standard conditions, which would be applied to the special permit. The first is that the plans and specifications approved by the board for the special permit shall be the final plans and specifications submitted to the building inspector of the town of Arlington in connection with its application for zoning relief. Should be no deviation during construction from approved plans and specifications without the express written approval of the Arlington Zoning Board of Appeals. Number 2 is the building inspector is hereby notified they are to monitor the site and should proceed with appropriate enforcement procedures at any time they determine that violations are present. The building inspector shall proceed under section 3.1 of the zoning bylaw and under the provisions of chapter 40, section 21D of the Massachusetts general laws and institute non-criminal complaints. If necessary, the building inspector may also approve and institute appropriate criminal action, also in accordance with section 3.1. And the third is that the board shall maintain continuing jurisdiction with respect to the special permit grant. Are there any additional conditions that members of the board feel would be necessary in order to approve this application? Seeing none, I would ask Mr. Hanlon if he or his designee would be willing to draft a decision in favor of approval of this application for presentation at our next hearing.
Mr. Chairman, which application are we referring? I mean, the answer is yes, but I'm I'm not completely clear on which is the application you're now referring to, the previous one that we just heard, or the one?
No. It's this. It's still 86 Rawson Road.
Okay, well, I'm happy to do that.
Great.
I should add to that, Mr. Chairman, that all we have done with respect to any of these, and all we will do with respect to this one probably, is to close the public hearing. That means we can't take any additional substantive evidence, but we can debate about it. We can deliberate, and we can come up with conditions, old and new, as part of the process of coming up with an opinion and getting that all perfected. So there's no particular difficulty with respect to the other case either.
Perfect. Well, thank you for that. All right. So with that, and with Mr. Hanlon preparing the written decision, I move to close the public hearing for docket 3829, 86 Rawson Road.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hanlon. So roll call vote of the board to close the public hearing for 86 Rawson Road. Voting yes or no, Mr. Hanlon?
Yes.
Mr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Ms. Hoffman?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. The hearing is closed. So as we noted in the previous hearing, we'll have a final decision that we'll vote on at our next hearing. And at that point, then it will proceed on to the town clerk.
Okay.
So you are all set.
Thank you so much for your time and consideration. You guys have a good night.
Thank you so much. Take care.
So are we supposed to be on a call in 2 weeks?
Nope, you can feel free to drop off.
Oh, so I mean like in the
Well,
next
next week you can if you'd like. You don't need to be there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Have a good night.
Right. So with that, close out of these. Back to my agenda. So next item is item 5 on our agenda, which is docket 3830, 39 Woodside Lane, which is being represented by Ms. O'Connor. So Ms. O'Connor, if you could go ahead and introduce the applicants and tell us what they're proposing to do.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Let me introduce the team that's on the call today. We have Paul Lassard, who is the architect, Richard Mead, who is the surveyor and engineer, and Ryan and Stephanie Janvion from AC General Contracting. They're all on. And you may recall, the members may recall certain of them, that we were in front of you, I think, maybe a year ago on this request for a large addition. The board had some suggestions, and my client has considered them. This is a request for a large addition under 5.4.2B. This is a prior non-conforming use. The house as it sits now conforms in all respects to the bylaw, the dimensional requirements, except for the rear lot line. I will tell you that the rear lot line is not going to be extended or expanded. So the nonconformity you will see when the plans are presented is not going to be further extended or expanded. It's the house is going to stay there, and nothing will be added to the back to further extend the nonconformity. This is a proposed 9-room house, 2.5 stories with 1 attached garage. And I would suggest that we have a PowerPoint to show you at the end. I will address the special conditions, including whether this proposed single-family home will not impair the integrity or character of the neighborhood, and we will go through why that is the case. So if, with the board's permission, I would have Mr. Lassard go through the plans.
That would be great. Thank you. Mr. Ralston, if you wouldn't mind giving Mr. Lassard the ability to share.
I think that Ms. Janvion will be sharing the drawings.
Oh, okay.
And I will comment on them, however.
There we go.
Okay, so what we see here is the existing edifice on the property. It's about 1,400 square feet. There's also a garage, and It's a very extremely modest structure, and the developer wants to make something that really fits into the neighborhood more, as more sellable. And so we can move along and look at the proposed situation. So what we have is a 4-bedroom house with a playroom, guest room, and also an office. It's a modern structure, and you'll see the modern casement windows. And it's a 2.5 story with a garage in the cellar that is attached as part of the house structure. You'll also see at the 1/2 story at the top, there are also some decks with railings which serve an office and also the master bedroom. This just shows the floor plan of the existing structure. Here on the left, you see the cellar/garage, and on the right, you see the proposed first floor with kitchen and living area and a bathroom. And if we move along, we'll see the second floor with 3 bedrooms and a playroom. And then on the right, you'll see the master suite at the 1/2 story, the top 1/2 story. See the master suite with an office and a bathroom adjunct to the office, and a couple of decks also. There's the roof plan. Does anyone have any questions?
Certainly, if you could go back to the next slide back. So on the proposed third floor plan. So in order to qualify as a 1/2 floor, the area needs to be less than 50% of the floor area below.
Yeah, it is. It is, yeah.
It is. And so the roof that surrounds the the enclosed portion of the third floor, is that a flat roof?
Yes. That lower level is flat, yeah.
Okay. And is there any kind of a parapet or anything, or is it just
well, we perceive people as having access only to the decks,
Yep.
and so they have a railing around the decks.
Okay.
There's no doors out onto the flat roof.
Okay. But the flat roof would effectively be at the same level as the open deck?
Within 6 inches or something like that.
Okay. And where the office is indicated on that upper floor,
Yeah.
it has a large closet and it's adjacent to a 3/4 bath. That what I'm seeing.
Let's look at that. I don't think it's a closet. I think it's a mechanical room.
Okay.
It's HVAC, I believe.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there's a little coat closet indentation there.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I mean, at that point, is there anything that differentiates it from being a 5th bedroom? Or because it does have a closet and essentially a private bath?
I mean, the bath is sort of a public bath. I mean, it's not en suite.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then the other question I had was on the first floor.
Okay, let's move to the first one. Thanks.
Um,
Mhm.
so there's a kitchen area off to the right, but there's also what appears to be a kitchen area off to the left, and it just confused as to what exactly the intention is there.
The customer asked for it. Basically, it's they wanted this big prep area to the left, and then traditional kitchen to the right with an island where people can sit. It's just they like an opulent prep area, so we
Okay.
provided it as requested. So
Got it. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, and then can you talk a little bit about what the plan is for the exterior finishes on the house?
Right. Well, it's pretty simple. It's just going to be a clapboard situation. 4.5 inch or 4 inch clapboard. Mhm.
And then and you said the windows are casements. Um, was there any thought given to sort of how the outside of the building would work as opposed to just the windows reflecting what's going on the interior?
I think that's, pretty much it. Let's look at the front of the house. These are kind of the back. On the very front face of the house, on the second floor, you see there's a left and a right situation. And then on the first floor, you've got triple windows directly over that and kind of central to the pair of windows above. I would not consider the whole building to be, you know, trying to be in a classical format. It's, as you say, very much addressing what's happening on the inside in a more modern sense.
And then do you have the site plan as well?
Let's see. Here we go.
Um, do you know, so the additional portion on the front, it's dimensioned off the front and it's dimensioned off the right side, but it's not dimensioned off the left side. I wasn't sure if you knew what that dimension was.
Well,
Mr. Mead would be able to answer that maybe.
if you see the word existing dwelling,
Yep.
The closest it gets to the left-hand property line is indicated as 13.8, I think, 13.6. And that existing dwelling, that rear corner of the existing dwelling is absorbed directly into the new house. So that would be the closest it gets to the property line.
I was more interested in terms of the addition because it showed the usable open space is shown as wrapping around the corner of the house. So the dimension between the property line and the proposed addition would need to be 25 feet in order for that to count. And I just wanted confirmation that that was the case.
Maybe Mr. Mead could address that a little better than I could. I see the word 25. I see near the word easement there is a 25.0 near the corner of the addition.
Richard Mead here, if I may.
Please.
So that lighter red line that goes from the existing dwelling to the property line just above the number 10,
Yep.
that's exactly 25 feet off the property line.
Ah, perfect.
Yeah, so as you get down to the addition, you're picking up another foot and a half. So you're closer to like 26 and a half feet from the property line to
Okay.
where the addition will be bending off of the existing dwelling.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate the
You're welcome.
clarification. All right, those were the questions I had. Are there members of the board who have questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hanlon?
just to be clear where we are, my understanding from what we were told earlier is that there remains a presentation that that the lawyer is planning to make on how this fits into the neighborhood that we haven't covered yet, and I just want to make sure that we're on track to turn to that before we're finished.
Oh, thank you for that reminder, Mr. Hanlon.
Chairman Klein, do you want me to? Let me
Sure.
start by saying this lot is 9,120 square feet, and the proposed addition and total house will be 4,562 square feet. Now, this is a neighborhood of a mixture of small and larger homes. And you'll see from this presentation, and after the presentation, I will give you an overview of other similar sized houses in the neighborhood. So Stephanie, if you would. 61 Woodside Lane, that lot, this house is 471 feet from my client's property. It is on a 7,623 square foot lot, and you can see that the lot is significantly smaller and the house is bigger than what the applicant is proposing. Next. 64 Woodside Lane is on a 7,600 square foot lot as well. You can see it's 5,060 square feet, and this is 528 feet from the proposed locus. Next. 6 Lillian Lane, this house is 4,636 square feet, and the lot is smaller than my client's lot. It's 7,972 square feet, and it's approximately 400 feet from the locus. 33 Ridge, this lot is larger than my client's lot. It's 9,757 square feet. The square footage of the house is 4,706, which is larger than proposed by the applicant. Next. Ridge Street. This is actually a very large lot. It's 13,000 square feet, and the house you can see is 5,238. There are several others. I would say to you, I can tell you that the surrounding streets, Hazel Terrace, Joyce, Oak Hill, and other homes on Woodside Lane, that with respect, there's 18 Hazel Terrace is a 10-room house, which is 1/10 of a mile from the locus. We have several houses on Joyce Street, which is in the neighborhood, 10 Joyce, 20 Joyce, 23 Joyce, 35 Joyce, all 8, 9, or 10-room homes that are approximately 1/10 of a mile from the locus. We have 66, we have Oak Hill houses on Oak Hill Drive. We have 34, 43, 74, 78, and 66 that are between 8 and 10 rooms that are 2/10 of a mile from the locus. And then we have other homes further up on Woodside Lane, 68, 102, 106, 134, 146, that are 9-room homes that are approximately 2/10 of a mile from the locus. So there is a mixture. Undoubtedly, if you've gone up Woodside Lane in that area, there are some very small homes, 700 square feet. And then there are these larger homes. So there is a mixture of homes in the area. I would say to you that you can see that I would say that life has changed over the years. We have people working from home, requiring more space. We have families that are looking for more bedrooms. Kids don't share bedrooms anymore like we used to when we were young. The benefit to the town is an orderly expansion of this lot for housing stock and an orderly expansion of the tax base. And I would suggest to you, given the mixture of homes in the area, it will not impair the integrity or character of this neighborhood or the adjoining district. And we, if you, I assume, Mr. Chairman Klein, you'll go through the criteria that we've briefed in our permit application, but I would leave it at that at this point.
All right. Thank you, Ms. O'Connor. Comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hanlon.
So many of the houses that Ms. O'Connor has referred to are not on the PowerPoint presentation that has been submitted for the record. And some of the ones that are on that, if you go and look at how far they are, not by how far the crow flies, but how far you have to drive to get there. I'm assuming that in this neighborhood people drive, that some of them are over a mile away. And yet we still have at the end an average of these houses. And I'm just wondering what the criteria was for looking for this. Is this really just a matter of looking through the area around here and picking out the larger houses to give us a list? Because an average suggests that you're doing something that compares these to the houses that are already there, and I don't really see that. What would the average be if you say took a half-mile radius or a quarter-mile radius, whatever you think is the most appropriate, and added in all of the houses, both the large ones and the small? How different would that be from the average of just the large one?
Oh, it would be different, but you know, it's a question of not just the immediate area, but the surrounding district as well. I mean, you have Mr. Hanlon, you have two houses in the vicinity of Woodside Lane that are on smaller lots that are larger structures, more square footage. So I gave you on the PowerPoint, I gave you the 5 closest houses within feet to the locus. And today I reviewed what one of the neighbors submitted and took from his list some of the larger homes as well in that area. So I haven't given you the ones that are a mile away. I've given you ones in the neighborhood.
Well, Google gave me the measurements actually, and all I had to work with was the PowerPoint that I had. I guess the question I have, a narrative that it sounds like we're talking about here is that we're in a neighborhood in transition. It used to be largely smaller houses, and because of changes in people's demands for housing, and also, as you know, a somewhat unfortunate change in the inability to provide new housing stock for more modest families and a tendency to be aiming at the top end of the market, the newer houses that are going in are larger. And it sounds a little bit as though the underlying narrative is that eventually the large ones will replace the old ones, and that the neighborhood that we imagine that will be consistent with all of these would not be something that kind of merges the two. So you have some one of one kind and some another in the diversity in the neighborhood, but eventually a gentrification where the larger houses take over from the smaller ones. And I'm just wondering whether that's what, now I understand that is part of an orderly development of the tax base. I probably don't understand it nearly as well as you do, but it doesn't necessarily seem to me that kind of an emerging monoculture of very large houses is necessarily what's in the town's vision of the way in which it wants its neighborhoods to come. So I guess I'm thinking in my mind, and I'm wondering just how you would address this, in my mind, this is a destabilizing force. Rather than aiming at a sort of a steady state of diversity, you're basically eliminating the existing neighborhood and moving towards a new kind of neighborhood that is all big and all very, very expensive. And I'm not sure that that is not a downside rather than an upside.
Well, I guess I would say the reality is if there were going to be larger homes, it would probably be up in this neighborhood because these are significantly larger lots than you see around town. The average lot is 5 or 6,000 square feet. So that an orderly expansion of housing stock would seem to make sense on these larger lots. The reality is that when someone sells their 700 square foot home on their 8,000 square foot lot, no one is going to put up a small structure. So I would say that this is where there's an orderly development of homes in this neighborhood. And you already have them in the neighborhood.
Does it matter that, I mean, you emphasized the lot size, and I understand a reason why that would be the case, but this looks like a very special lot because it's so steep that the amount that's actually buildable is nowhere near the 9,100 square feet that you've mentioned. Much of it seems as if it's basically a relatively small buildable lot nestled up close to the street, and then a huge steep hill behind that is really just for it. And I wonder to what extent the lot really does support a house of this size.
Thank you, Mr. Hanlon. Anything further?
Not for me.
Okay. Are there other questions or comments from members of the board at this time? Seeing none, I am going to go ahead and open the meeting for public comment. This is a reminder that public questions and comments are taken they relate to the matter at hand. It should be directed to the board for the purpose of informing its decision. Members of the public who wish to speak can digitally raise their hand using the button on the React tab in the Zoom application. Those calling in by phone may dial *9 to indicate they'd like to speak. You'll be called upon by the chair, asked to give name and address for the record, and given time for questions and comments. All questions are to be addressed through the chair. And once all questions and comments have been addressed, the public comment period will be closed. So with that, are there members of the public who wish to address this application, which is docket 383039 Woodside Lane? Mr. Moore.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve Moore, Piedmont Street. I've got to say, I was in listening to the comments by Mr. Hanlon and the attorney. I was struck by the irony of the term orderly expansion of the housing stock, because what we're seeing here is an orderly expansion dimensionally of housing stock, not the stock of housing in town. This is a much larger house than what is there. But that's just irony. I would like to reference one of the items that was presented earlier, the plot plan. Can we go back to that, please?
Or Ms. Donovan, do you mind? Thank you.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Could you zoom in, please, on the corner that's sort of on the northwest side of this that I'm looking at? Yeah, right there. I can see that it's a 19-foot 1 inch or 19.1 foot setback. And I see a rather smallly drawn tree that is actually a 29-inch DBH, which is 2.5 pushing 3 feet, 2.5 foot wide trunk tree. A much larger tree than this looks like. And in looking at the photographs that I saw, there's some it's a very large tree. It's twice the height of the house that exists there now. And it looks quite healthy in a picture that was actually kind of old. I think it was 4 years ago. So this is claimed to not be in the setback. Is that true by the applicant, Mr. Chair?
I defer to the engineer on that, the surveyor.
Right. The tree that we have labeled 24-inch spruce.
29-inch oak. Yeah, that's it, right.
Right, so that it's outside the rear yard setback.
Okay, and it's going to be taken as part of this project, yes?
That tree would have to come down to accommodate that section of the addition, yes.
Mm, that's a significant tree, that's all. And the town is losing many significant trees, as the board well knows. I have strong interest in trees in the town, and a healthy oak, taking it when it's really when the canopy goes into the setback clearly. I guess the trunk does not, but the root zone certainly does. That would be a loss to the town. The second question, though, about the easement. What is that 10-foot wide easement for?
It's a utility easement that brings, I believe, at least water to the house that sits behind us, which is at number 43 Woodside.
Okay, I see. It's a water service easement, and you can't go anywhere near it, I trust. I can see that. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. To be followed by Mr. Eric Moore.
Yes, no relation. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can. Yes, sir.
Yes, I live at 26 Woodside Lane, and I see the existing dwelling from my kitchen window. And I actually live in one of the 700 square foot houses on an 8,000 square foot lot, as the attorney described. I just had a couple comments that I noticed when I was looking at the proposal. The first comment, and I did mail you some supporting documentation, is that the packet of information contains 10 examples of houses averaging around 4,700 square feet. And also in the information, there's a list of abutters, about 48 houses within 300 square feet of 300 feet of the existing house. But not a single one of these 10 houses over 4,000 square feet is in that list. Not one of them is one of the abutters, according to the certified document. And I actually got interested in this later. I wondered what the average size of the abutter houses are. And so I took the time to go through Zillow. I know it's not entirely accurate. And I logged the size of all of the 48 houses that are in the abutters list. And the average square feet of them is 1,626 square feet. So this house would be 2.8 times larger than the average house in the neighborhood. And the largest house in this list was 3,274 square feet. So it's still almost 40% larger than this. So I feel that I don't begrudge the opportunity to develop this lot. I think that's the American dream. But I think this proposed house is quite out of sync with the other houses in the immediate vicinity. And finally, one other thing I noticed, that for a 5-bedroom house, this only has a single garage space plus a single car parking space, which seems a little bit inadequate. I know many of us have to deal with space constraints like this, but I also feel like this sort of is in keeping with the fact that they're trying to put the absolute maximum size house on this lot as possible. So those are the kinds of things I just thought I would draw to your attention. I hope you'll consider them in your decision.
Thank you very much. Are there others who wish to address this application? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment period for this application. So what the board has before it, this is an application, it's listed under a couple different sections. It's listed under 811, 813A, and 542B6. 542B6 being the operative one, the large addition. The other ones have to do with nonconformity. And as the applicant had noted, the only existing nonconformity has to do with the rear of the existing house. And there are no other existing nonconformities, nor any proposed nonconformities. I had asked earlier about the usable open space. There, according to the applicant, there currently is no usable open space because it doesn't meet the 8% grade requirement for usable open space. But they're adding a retaining wall, which will flatten out that upper portion of the lot, which will then create usable open space. So the intent is that the project would be actually compliant in regards to usable open space. And then the below that would be where the driveway is coming in from the street. Mr. Mead, do you happen to know the approximate height of that retaining wall at its highest? Oh, you're on mute, sorry.
Sorry, I had my audio off while you guys were talking. So we have it proposed at just under 4 feet in height for the actual retaining wall, with the ground then sloping slightly up from there to the left side of the property. But yeah, so it would be just under 4 feet, and the retaining wall itself just under 4 feet in height, with a gradual slope up from right to left to the left side of the property.
Okay. In the front elevation, the height of the retaining wall is effectively the height of the garage door. Is that correct?
At the where the retaining wall then hits the proposed addition?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be, so the garage door would be clear of it, but that would be it would be 4 feet there, yes.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause certainly the way it's drawn on the architectural plans, it looks like when at the house, the retaining wall is more like 8 feet high. And if that was the case, well,
I think we've got I've got a set of stairs from that section of the driveway up to that first section of landing going into the house.
Mhm.
So you got like 6 rises there. So you're gonna be it's gonna be it should be 4 feet. If it's any larger than 4 feet, then it would have to be designed by a structural engineer. But it wouldn't be 8 feet. It would, I mean, if it is more than 4, it would just be maybe 5 feet but I believe it was set for 4 feet.
Okay. Would there be any kind of a protective railing provided on that open side?
We weren't proposing any, but I'm sure the applicant would have no objection with doing that.
It's just where the distance and elevation is greater than 30 inches. I'm not sure. I know in the commercial code, it would kick in that you were required to have a guardrail. I don't know the residential code well enough to know if that's the case.
I don't think I don't think the walkway from the stairs is going along that edge. I think
Okay.
if the walkway were along the side of the wall, I think that would be required, but
Okay. I mean, it's something that would be reviewed by inspectional services, so it's not
yeah,
necessarily.
the client would be um, amiable to putting it in if required by the city.
Okay.
I don't think that's a problem.
Other questions, comments from the board? I did want to just quickly, so because this is being requested as part of a large addition, the question is, under a large addition, the board is required to make a finding that the alteration or addition is in harmony with other structures and uses in the vicinity. And in making that determination, the board is to consider dimensions and setbacks in relation to abutting structures and uses, and to consider conformity with the purposes of the bylaw. So I'm just going to quickly share. There it goes. So this is this area, sort of a blow up of this area of town. The square box is the site with the garage and the existing house. And so, as was noted before, this is, this area of town does seem to have some larger lots. There's a little more spacing. As Mr. Hanlon had noted, the triangular section that leads off towards the south east is really a very steep slope, which is why it's undeveloped on pretty much all the lots going through. The adjacent parcel immediately to the south is conservation land. So there's certainly no abutting structures on that side. The proposal for the new structure is sort of in the location where my cursor is showing here. So it's sort of developed in the direction that there's not immediately a house in that direction. So it's not sort of increasing the density in that particular direction. And so just for the board, in its consideration of dimensions and setbacks, this is where it is. And in this house here, that it just has the front yard. There's a driveway that runs close to the property line, but it's not developed at the front. It's developed more towards the rear. So that is, and then site plan again, and then so this is again so this house was described as sort of being modern, and I wanted to sort of go back to the architect and ask a little bit about sort of the way the house was developed, because my reading of the house, you basically have a two-story wall that goes all the way around, and then you have basically a penthouse that sits on top of it. And it's very unlike other houses in the neighborhood. The slide deck of houses of comparable or larger size that was presented are all very different looking houses. They're all much more sort of traditional New England houses, much more like what people are used to in this neighborhood. And so I would just like to understand a little bit better about how the decision was done to develop the house in this style and what the advantages are as the board is to look at how it fits in with the character and integrity of the district.
Well, I think that the shape of the property lines dictated to some degree the shaping of the house, and that was not in line with your classic Jeffersonian New England or colonial style house. And so the client was thinking that this would be appealing to him, and you can see that the choice of um, the windows with no grills in them is also consistent with the simplicity of the outside of the house. So I would say partially driven by the shape of the setbacks, and then also the desire of the client to have a certain type of house, you know.
Mhm. But the front entrance is very traditional.
Well, I don't know if I'd say that it's a simple door with sheets of glass left and right. There's no muntins, no divisions of glass, similar to something Jeffersonian.
Mhm. So you're saying sort of because of the angular nature of the site that the house had to respond to, there wasn't a good way to develop sort of a more standard roof plan that
Well, I think that's partially it. The client wanted to maximize the site and, maximize the use of the site. And that made it somewhat of a angular house in plan, but also you have the situation where the existing house was cockeyed to the street. If you look at the site plan, you'll see where the existing house is. That doesn't line up straight with the street, and we wanted to coordinate with the existing structure and build our structure as an addition to the existing one. So you've got the rear line and the side and the lower left side line of the existing dwelling defining two edges of the house, so we're trying to deal with setbacks, we're trying to deal with the lines of the existing structure.
okay. Just looking again here at the site plan, at the rear of the lot here, just below where it says 19.1, this bluish line, is this an existing retaining wall? Is that what that is?
I'm not sure. Mr. Mead, is that an
Yeah,
existing?
Yep, I'm here. So that is existing.
Okay, and it's just like a landscape wall kind of thing?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you both. Other questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. LeBlanc.
I guess I kind of want to just add that I kind of feel the same way you do. Think about the proposed structure, the addition. I was kind of struck by the words that, everything wanted to be maximized on the site. And I feel like to some degree, that design brief is creating somewhat of a forced design. And, forcing the hand in this application to kind of create something that um, doesn't feel as fitting to the neighborhood in terms of its overall design. I guess, going back to the buildings or the structures we were shown in the similar structures presentation, I agree with you. Those, while being modern in terms of their take, they did seem to have more classic roots to them, with a kind of a modern spin on them. Um, where I think this tries to deviate a little too far from that in its massing, um, especially the half story on on the third story more or less. Um, I think to me that's the thing that's screaming the maximize me thing and creating something that doesn't seem to fit in with the rest of the general form and massing of the rest of the buildings in the surrounding area. I also, um, taking into consideration Mr. Moore's take on the tree, looking at that tree, obviously the Google Maps is a couple years old at this point, but that does look like a pretty substantial tree, and I would not like to see that tree go, as well. I feel like um, there was the potential to deal with that tree and do an addition without having to take that tree down. But then again, we go back to that design brief of maximize, and that's where we end up. So I think with those couple of things, that's at this point, I think where I feel a little hung up at the moment. Um, Also, I'm not sure, this started out with, there was a previous rendition of this before the board. I'm not familiar with what that was, or, what has changed from then to now, because I wasn't a part of the board then. So if there's any light to be shed on that, that might help with anything, I appreciate that. But that's, I guess, where I stand at the moment.
Great. Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please, Ms. Hoffman.
Oh, yeah, I actually, so, I was kind of gonna follow up on, Mr. LeBlanc's last point, which is that I found myself curious about how this, compared to when this came before the board last time, and just on the sort of maximize, angle of things, it does appear, I think, a bit larger. I did dig up the original application from 2022, and I think that was over 1,000 square feet smaller. And so I was curious to hear from the applicant, just to confirm if that's accurate, and why it had grown significantly.
Yeah, I'm not recalling, it was so long ago, to tell you the truth, what the original design was.
Unfortunately, I don't think I have it readily on hand.
I had it. I might have closed the tab. If I can find it again, I'll pull it up. But when I saw it, I think it was somewhere just under 3,500.
Okay.
Would it be helpful if I can find it, if I can share it, or is that not useful?
Yeah, it would be
Okay.
helpful to you since it's your question.
Right. Okay. All right. Give me a moment to pull this back up here. Maybe the conversation could proceed while because it probably will take me more than a minute.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, I have another question.
Yes, Mr. LeBlanc.
At this point, given the level of addition and modification going on to the existing structure, has it ever been a discussion between the applicant and the their representatives here of just taking the existing structure down and doing a new structure? The lot is large enough where it seems like you can comply with the setbacks and other zoning requirements to do this in a more way that complies with the zoning code and um, maybe achieve some of the goals that are being looked at by the applicant?
I do not know if that was ever discussed. Do you know, Mr. Lassard?
Well, as I recall, the client chose the option of doing an addition as opposed to doing something completely new. It was their decision to approach it that way.
I would like to point out, if I might, Mr. Chairman, that I think the size of the structure is mitigated by the fact that you have the conservation land on one side, and it doesn't really impact 43 Woodside Lane on the other side. So I think the lot is oriented, and where it's located, it's a distinctly different type of lot. So I just point that out.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hanlon?
well, I wanted to go back. I mean, I learned a lot from the recent discussion. I'm going to go back to the provision of the bylaw that we're dealing with. Subsection F says the requested use will not impair the integrity or character of the district. And I never really, when I started off addressing the board, I never really thought of it as strictly a question of arithmetic. I thought of it as a question of taking a challenge to make the building that meets the needs of the client consistent with the integrity of a zoning district that does not consist entirely of big houses like this one. And part of that is maybe the size, and part of it may be dealing with the nature of the structures. If we looked at the residential design guidelines for this area, largely smaller ranch houses and colonials, and there's a certain stylistic, I wouldn't say unity, but consistency that goes into what to me is the character of the neighborhood. And it's almost as if every time that there was a necessity to make a decision, the decision was made against supporting the integrity of the neighborhood in favor of maximizing the utility to the ultimate owner, who I don't know whether that's a person who's planning to move in or a person who's managing to then sell this to somebody in the market. And it seems to me a lot more could be done to make this consistent with the bylaw. I wouldn't expect it to be a 700 square foot house. That's kind of a, but Mr. Moore, Mr. Eric Moore was persuasive. The houses that we've seen pointed to are hardly the houses that define the nature of the neighborhood. And doing things with design, doing things with size, all are things that would enable you to have something that is more consistent with the integrity and character of the existing neighborhood and not the neighborhood that we expect to replace it. And that I think is what the bylaw is aiming at. And that at least is something that I am aiming at. I very much doubt that I would be able to support the application as it stands.
Thank you, Mr. Hanlon. Ms. Hoffman, were you
Mr. Chair-
successful in finding your?
Yes, I found it. So I will go ahead and share screen. All right, and I'm just going to share two things. There are probably other aspects of the application that I wasn't able to dig up, but this is just the drawing set. So you can see these are the existing elevations, and then here are the proposed elevations. And plans. And then the other, so I actually couldn't find on the application where the square foot was listed, but like on the official form, but there was similarly a review included, and in that table it does list the proposed square footage for 39 Woodside Lane at 3,376.
Okay.
So that's what I've got. Do you have any other questions before I stop sharing?
That is perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Very helpful. So what the board has before it, this is a request for a large addition. As I said before, the board needs to find that the alteration is or addition is in harmony with other structures and uses in the vicinity. And to do that, we are to consider the dimensions and setbacks in relation to the abutting structure and uses, and to consider conformity with the purposes of the bylaw. And where there's been some question about the suitability here, I did want to go ahead and just share the zoning bylaw, the purposes section 1.2. So the purpose of the bylaw is to promote the health, safety, convenience, morals, welfare, of the inhabitants of Arlington, lessen congestion in the streets, and then there's a long list of things. The ones I had highlighted are ones we typically talk about when we're doing reviews. So providing adequate light and air, prevent the overcrowding of land. We don't always talk about the encouraging housing for persons of all income levels, but it's an important thing to consider. Encourage for an orderly expansion of the tax base by utilization, development, redevelopment of land, made with reasonable consideration of the character of the district and its peculiar suitability for particular uses. There are also statements in the middle of conservation of natural conditions of flora and fauna, serve as urban amenity for scenic and aesthetic enjoyment and recreational use, conserve value of land and buildings, encourage most appropriate use of land throughout town, and achieve optimum environmental quality through review and cooperation, use and incentives, preserve, increase amenities. So includes a lot of different things, but what I'm sort of hung up on, and I sort of feel people are as well, is that this proposal doesn't feel like it makes any attempt to be a part of the neighborhood. It really feels like it is just, and I apologize for, lack of softness in the language. It just really feels like an attempt to build the largest possible thing in the cheapest possible fashion, and there was no real incentive to put any effort into considering how the property is viewed from the rest of the neighborhood and how it is a part of the neighborhood. It's really very central and internal that, it encompasses almost the maximum land it can. All of the openings are related to what goes on in the inside and have no real relation to creating an exterior that has any sense that it has neighbors. And the roofs and everything are sort of done in a fashion that unfortunately really doesn't create something that is very visually appealing, because of the use of the very low slope roofs up very high. I do have a lot of concerns about having large flat areas of roof that are unprotected except by just a guardrail around a porch section, but the ability to get out of the windows and be out on that area at a very high elevation is concerning. And I don't feel like this proposal has any real relation to the abutting structures and isn't in harmony with the other structures. It's really just sort of a standalone piece. And I'm very, I don't feel like I'm in a position that I would feel that this meets the requirements to make the required findings.
Mr. Chairman, may I suggest we put this over for a period of time and
Certainly,
my client reflect on the comments of the zoning board in the design?
absolutely. But
Okay.
absolutely, if you were looking to continue, when do you think you might want to return?
Well, I think it's gonna take some time if we're gonna come back with another plan, so I'd ask Mr. Lazard how much time he would need.
Well, I would say probably need 6 weeks. The client has to give some input and go back and forth on that. So I would say 6 weeks.
So the next 4 meetings for the board, January 28th, February 11, February 25th, and March 11th. And then there would also be March 25th as well.
I would say March 11th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, so the request would be for a continuance to March 11th, 2025. Are there any further questions from the board or anything further that the board feels would be helpful for the applicant in their consideration of their plans? Seeing none, I move that to continue the public hearing for docket 3830 39 Woodside Lane until Tuesday, March 11th, 2025 at 7:30 p.m.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Hanlon. The roll call vote of the board to approve the continuance. Voting yes or no, Mr. Hanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Holly,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc,
Yes.
Ms. Hoffman,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. We are continued on this item, docket 3830 39 Woodside Lane.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your being here.
Thanks.
With that, that was the last item on our agenda this evening. As I just mentioned, the next meetings of the board would be Tuesday, January 28th. Ms. Ralston, what do we have coming up on the 28th?
On the 28th, we have one for Florence Ave. I believe it's just a large addition.
Okay.
Oh, actually, no, that might be a second driveway.
Oh, okay.
The two for the following week after that both are they still haven't finished their applications. I gave them till tomorrow.
Okay.
One is trying to work with the Historic Society to build an addition. And they want them to move a garage into the place, which would it's an existing old garage. I don't think they're going to be able to do it because it will cut the setbacks.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. And the other one is a property that is on a smaller lot, like 4,900 square feet, who would like to do a tear down and rebuild a duplex.
Okay.
Okay. And those are the two. I don't think either one of them is really ready for the 11th. One might be because the architect is already trying to work out a plan.
Okay.
Okay.
And then you had told me previously the 25th, there's nothing on the docket yet.
Yeah, nothing at all.
Perfect. And then, yep. And on March 11th, we'll also have, excuse me, February 11th, we'll have the continuance of 20 Lane.
Yes. And then March 11th for this one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that is all.
You're right. Well, I would like to thank you all for your participation in tonight's meeting of the Arlington Zoning Board of Appeals. I appreciate everyone's patience throughout the meeting. I'd especially like to thank Colleen Ralston for all her assistance in preparing for and hosting our online meeting. Please note the purpose of the board's recording of the meeting is to ensure the creation of an accurate record of its proceedings. It is our understanding that the recording made by ACMi will be available on demand at acmi.tv within the coming days. And if anyone has comments or recommendations, please send them via email to zba@town.arlington.ma.us. That email address is also listed on the Zoning Board of Appeals website. And to conclude tonight's meeting, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. So roll call vote of the board, yes or no? Mr. Hanlon?
Yes.
Mr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, the board is adjourned. Thank you all so very much for being here. Elaine, thanks for stepping in.
Happy to.
And we will see everybody soon.
Have a good night, everyone.
Night all.
Night.
Good night.